I will ask you a simple yet tricky question. Can you imagine a new primary color? To elaborate, most of us perceive three primary colors of light: red, green, and blue. And of course, black and white represent contrast, or more accurately, the absence or presence of the light. Colors like yellow, orange, brown, and all others are simply combinations of the three primary colors, each with a different contrast. So, in response to the original question, you could give two answers. No, a logical and fairly correct one, or yes, if you didn't quite get the question or took a stab in the dark. But there might be a more accurate answer. Not yet. Vision, particularly in highly developed mammals like humans, is an incredibly complex process. It starts with the sensory organ, the eye, which is a highly intricate structure consisting of many layers and cells. The information from the eye is then sent to a visual cortex, a large part of the nervous system responsible for processing and interpreting this visual data. For this discussion, we will focus on a specific type of cell in the eye, the cone cell. Most humans have three types of cone cells, which directly correspond to the three primary colors we perceive. Some individuals have only two types, leading to partial color blindness, while others have only one, resulting in total color blindness, essentially seeing the world in black and white. Interestingly, there are medically confirmed cases of people with four types of cone cells, potentially allowing them to perceive four primary colors, a condition known as tetrachromacy. However, we should approach this with some caution, and I will explain why later. What's even more astonishing is that many animals have four types of cone cells. Some species, like pigeons and butterflies, possess 5 types, while the mantis shrimp has between 12 and 16 types. These shrimp can even see ultraviolet light, far red, which is close to infrared but not quite, and polarized light. Compared to this, our 3 types seem rather limited. However, vision is a complex mechanism. Simply having 2 types of sensors that respond to different wavelengths of light, which our brain interprets as color, may not be sufficient. It's possible that species like pigeon, despite having more cone types, may lack the brain capacity to process these signals in a way that we would recognize as color. The concept of color is also very abstract. What our eyes detect is simply light of different wavelengths, so it is as mathematical as it gets. When light enters the eye and hits the retina, the signal is sent to the visual cortex. The term visual cortex refers to a whole system of brain regions responsible for processing the sensory output from the eye. As we concluded earlier, the eye itself operates fairly mathematically when it sends this data to the visual cortex. But it's the visual cortex that does all the magic of color perception, and much more. It compensates for the limitations of our sensory setup, like the fact that we have 2 eyes and a nose sticking out in front of them, by filling the blind spots and covering up the obstructions, making our experience of the visual world feel seamless, accurate, and with far fewer distractions. Our healthy vision appears as smooth as we can imagine. Returning to the concept of color, the visual cortex is responsible for our cognitive experience of color, which is why I have some doubts about the idea that simply having more cones would lead to cognitively experiencing more primary colors. Based on the concepts, observations, and ideas we discussed earlier, we can arrive to 2 possible conclusions about the cognitive experience of color. First, that our color space, and that of other living organisms, is limited to 3 basic colors, with extra color cones in the retina simply increasing sensitivity to transition between basic colors, like having more sensitivity to green, orange, etc. This conclusion, however, doesn't quite match reality, since colorblind people are actually better at distinguishing some shades of colors. This was discovered during wartime experiments, where it was concluded that certain type of colorblindness, particularly red-green colorblindness, allowed individuals to better spot camouflaged objects and enemies. So, we arrive at a second, more intriguing and exciting conclusion. The cognitive experience of color space is not limited to just 3 primary colors. This opens up some fascinating possibilities. Vision itself is a product of evolution, a very long period of it. This applies to human vision as well. Since most people perceive the world using 3 basic colors, trichromacy, we can assume that our visual cortex has evolved and optimized to process vision in this trichromatic color space. So, when someone is missing a certain type of cone cell, it doesn't mean their visual cortex is entirely incapable of processing that color. It simply means they don't experience it in the same way as someone with full trichromatic vision. For example, a person with retinopia, those that lack the cones that detect blue light, still has a visual cortex capable of creating the cognitive experience of blue. However, because their eyes don't send enough of the blue signal, they don't experience it to the same extent as someone with a normal color vision. Their visual cortex may only generate faint hints of blue on rare occasions, which is the best their system can offer given the limitations of their eyes. This could also explain why tritanopic individuals may have heightened sensitivity to certain shades of other colors, like red and yellow, since their cognitive color space is more finely tuned to process the available signals from their eyes. In this sense, the visual cortex compensates for the eye's limitation by optimizing and adjusting how it processes visual information. In the same way, I suspect that people who have 4 types of cone cells in their eyes do not actually experience true tetrachromacy. It seems unlikely that their visual cortex is capable of processing 4 primary colors and the myriad combinations that would arise from them. Instead, I believe their visual cortex still generates 3 primary colors for their cognitive experience, and extra cone cells simply provide better sensitivity to certain color ranges while reducing sensitivity in others. This is, of course, just speculation. During early brain development, the brain undergoes a lot of adjustments and optimizations thanks to its high neuroplasticity in infancy and childhood. It's possible that the visual cortex could adjust itself to accommodate additional cones, enabling a true tetrachromatic experience for those lucky individuals who possess 4 cone cell types. But regardless of what scenario is true, neither impacts the main proposition of this video.
I'd like to invite you into our state-of-the-art laboratory in the future. In our cutting-edge lab, we have the personnel, tools, and means to test and answer questions far beyond the capabilities of current science and technology, and we are going to do just that. Our brilliant scientists took your question and decided to conduct experiments, and lucky you have been chosen as the subject. A few of our experts have analyzed eyes of species with 4 or more types of cone cells, and they figured out how to create and integrate these cone cells in a way that is 100% compatible with your body. We believe starting with 4 cones in your eyes will be enough, just as a proof of concept. Meanwhile, our neuroscience specialists have studied human visual cortex, identifying the structures responsible for visualizing and processing the color spectrum into your cognitive experience. The gray matter sector has already crafted a set of memories that will be implanted into your brain, ensuring that your visual cortex can immediately begin processing the new spectrum of colors instead of just confusing you. Don't worry, the modifications are subtle and tied to your subconscious memory. When you wake up, you'll experience an upgraded visual world right away. And just as I'm explaining all this, the operation coordinator just gave us the green light to proceed. How lucky! Welcome back, our beloved subject. First, I am pleased to inform you that the operation was a complete success, and congratulations are in order for being the first verified human to consciously experience tetrachromacy. I see you are a bit confused, understandably, the world seems the same. But I must apologize, as our labs are rather dull in color, and here your abilities won't be fully realized. We are moving you to our test area, where you'll get to experience the full spectrum. And behold, isn't it marvelous? To think that Mother Nature, or God, or the Creator, or simply evolution cut us short of such a wonderful experience. It's infuriating. Let it all soak in. As for those of you watching this demonstration on your archaic trichromatic viewing devices, like monitors, and with your primitive, non-augmented eyes and visual cortex, I must explain that what you're seeing is a bit different from what our beloved subject is experiencing. The image you are viewing has been downgraded to a format your hardware can handle. But soon, perhaps sooner than you think, you will be able to experience the same marvel our test subject is seeing right now.
A lot of our cognitive abilities rely on a proper development of our brain during early childhood. If a person lacks critical sensory functions during this developmental period, it can result in a complete and irreversible loss of certain abilities, even if the sensory organ function is later restored. For example, individuals with esotropia, more commonly known as being cross-eyed, during a critical age may never develop stereopsis. Stereopsis is the brain's ability to perceive the visual signal from both eyes in 3 dimensions. This is possible because the images from each eye are slightly offset due to the eyes being located on a different sides of the face, thus providing 2 slightly different viewpoints. Stereopsis doesn't develop at birth. It begins to emerge between 3 and 6 months of age, with full maturation typically occurring before age 2. If a baby experiences a visual dysfunction, such as blindness or esotropia, during this period, and the issue isn't corrected in time, it leads to a permanent and practically irrecoverable lack of 3D perception. Even if the eye condition is later fully resolved, the visual cortex has not learned how to combine the different signals from the left and right eye into a coherent 3D image, which means stereopsis remains absent. Despite lacking stereopsis, individuals in this situation can still gauge distances, drive, and understand most of visual information just like others. They simply do not perceive the world in 3 dimensions. To help those with normal stereopsis grasp this concept, here is a simple example. Imagine placing 2 identical cups on a desk, one on the left, farther away from you, and the other one on the right, closer to you. Moving your head will give you a good sense of their 3D positions. Now, take your phone and film the scene while mimicking the head movements you made earlier. What you'll get is a non-stereo view of the same scene. Even though your phone does not record the 2 different viewpoints your eyes naturally perceive, you can still estimate the positions, distances, and sizes of the objects. This is because our brains, as highly developed mammals, are capable of analyzing visual information in many different ways. Until quite recently, it was believed that babies who did not develop stereopic vision would never be able to perceive the world in 3 dimensions. This idea was challenged by Professor Susan Berry, a neuroscientist born with this deficiency, who was able to develop 3-dimensional perception at the age of 48. Born cross-eyed, Dr. Berry did not have her condition corrected until the age of 7, after undergoing multiple surgeries correcting the eye alignment. As a result, she missed the critical developmental years for stereoscopic vision, and like many experts at the time, believed she would never experience 3D vision. In her mid-40s, Dr. Berry began experiencing jittery vision, which prompted her to seek help from her developmental optometrist. The doctor recommended a program of optometric vision therapy, which included exercises like Brock string while jumping on a trampoline. After one of these sessions, Dr. Berry had an unforgettable moment. Sitting in her car, she looked at the steering wheel, which appeared to float in front of her. Suddenly, she began noticing that objects were positioned behind each other, and over following months, with continued exercise, she was able to fully develop 3D vision. While I can somewhat imagine how this must have felt, I cannot fully grasp the overwhelming experience of gaining this ability that most of us take for granted. Yet, one wonders what groundbreaking abilities future technological advancements might enable. One's mind inevitably wonders what other possibilities could be enhanced. Some obvious examples come to mind, such as the enhancement of something as simple as arithmetic. Evolution, unlike us, has more modest appetites. The ability to perform complex calculations is not a feature of the most developed nervous system observed. In fact, it is easily outclassed by a basic, cheap calculator. This ability likely isn't very calorie demanding and doesn't need to interfere with other brain functions, as it could be engaged at will, much like replaying sounds in one's mind. From a resource demand perspective, there is no reason this shouldn't be a part of our cognitive toolkit. However, evolution doesn't work like that. Its modus operandi is not the best possible, but rather, good enough. Yet, some individuals do possess the ability to perform highly complex math almost instantaneously, suggesting that such a trait isn't necessarily detrimental to other cognitive aspects. However, it was clearly not advantageous enough through most of human evolution until recent times. Other possibilities include enhanced or controlled long-term memory, where you decide what gets stored permanently, a voluntary emotional switch, allowing conscious control of some emotions, internet fetching, where your brain could access reliable online databases directly, or direct memory writing, where memories could be transferred directly into the brain's gray matter. Like we demonstrated with Dr. Berry's leap to 3 dimensions, future enhancements might let us intuitively grasp 4 dimensions, just as natural as we see in 3 dimensions today. The potential options to enhance or add new functions to what evolution has provided are endless. In discussing these cognitive abilities, I propose introducing a new term: interface. Unlike cognition, which often refers to thought and reasoning, interface encompasses the entire range of sensory and emotional experiences processed by the brain. It includes vision, memory, hearing, touch, temperature perception, taste, smell, as well as emotions like excitement or love. But it extends further. Interface also includes the feeling of tightening our muscles, the rush of fear, the weight of stress, and the underlying structure that subtly guides our behavior. Though intangible and abstract, it remains deeply connected to a physical reality, shaping how we experience and respond to the world. Good user interface designers know that the most important qualities of a well-designed interface are an easy learning curve and a smooth user experience. In human cognition, while we learn many things from parents and teachers, much of our cognitive function emerges naturally during early childhood. Some abilities, like memory, begin without conscious control. Initially, we do not choose what to retain long-term, but over time, we gain some influence over it. For example, our ability to perceive depth develops at a certain stage, seemingly without deliberate effort. Some cognitive abilities can be entirely absent, and lacking them can present challenge, even today, let alone in the harsh conditions of early evolution. Other skills, such as walking and speech, require guidance from others. While human interface development is slow, many animals reach full functionality much faster. Most four-legged animals, for example, begin walking within minutes of birth, and one can assume they develop depth perception just as quickly. This contrast suggests that the prolonged development of human cognition may be an evolutionary trade-off. Our abilities far surpass those of most other animals, implying that more advanced interface requires a steeper learning curve, or perhaps that we simply never faced evolutionary pressure to streamline it. One fascinating feature of the cognitive interface is its ability to extend beyond its natural constraints, though with some clear limits. What do I mean by this? Imagine having 4 arms, with 2 extra ones protruding beneath your existing pair. You can vividly picture them flexing, moving, feeling warmth or cold, even touching your real hands with an imagined one. This capacity extends to many other imagined bodily changes: longer arms, extra fingers, different leg positions, yet some boundaries remain rigid. You cannot imagine a new primary color. You cannot truly picture how your vision would look if you had an eye on the back of your head. I speculate that these limits are adaptive. Our interface needs to remain flexible enough to accommodate natural human variations, such as differences in body shape, while avoiding the instability of total rewiring. After all, limbs can be lost, and those better able to adapt to such change have a greater chance of survival and procreation. Our own interface feels intuitive, but imagining the interface of other organisms is far more difficult. Since evolution shaped our experience, we can more easily picture a sensory world of animals closely related to us, monkeys, other mammals, than of the insects or birds, especially those with entirely different sensory inputs. This raises an interesting question. Do organisms without a central nervous system, or even without nerves at all, possess some form of primitive interface? If so, it wouldn't rely on electrical impulses like ours, but rather on biological reactions. A vastly different system, perhaps too simple to be called consciousness, but still an early, weak form of what we experience today. This perspective suggests a pattern, a scalar nature of interface, where its complexity and power can be measured on a continuum. It is clear that different versions of the interface possess varying levels of overall power. If we break down the interface into specific abilities, humans are not superior in every aspect. Elephants have better long-term memory, birds and cats have superior visual systems, and monkeys exhibit superior limb coordination. However, in terms of overall capability, I would argue that the human interface surpasses all others, which is why we sit on top of the evolution chain. To loosely quantify this, I propose a unit: interface power. For simplicity, let's assign the average human an INTP of 100. A cow, dog, or a pig might fall within the 70 to 80 range. A chicken? Around 30. A typical snake? Around 20. A small fish like a sardine? Around 10. As we move down to insects, we start seeing single-digit ENTP values, dropping further to creatures like nematode worms, which might have an INTP of 0.05. Single-celled organisms approach the threshold where their interface either does not exist or holds an infinitesimally small value, approaching 0. This naturally leads us to a more speculative question. Could things we do not consider alive, such as viruses or even inanimate matter, possess some extremely weak form of interface? While intriguing, these ideas are best left for another time. The key takeaway here is that interface power follows a clear, linear function, making it a tangible and quantifiable concept. Assigning 100 to an average human also allows for variance. A highly intelligent and perceptive individual would have the higher INTP than someone whose cognitive abilities remain stagnant. Moreover, INTP is not a fixed constant, it fluctuates. A person under the influence of alcohol, extreme fatigue, or neurological impairment experiences a temporary reduction in INTP, akin to a cognitive debuff. Conversely, our interface can be augmented. A human with access to the internet and the ability to use it competently has a higher INTP than one without, as their cognitive limitations are expanded by an immense knowledge base and external processing power. In recent years, artificial intelligence and large language models have begun acting as a cognitive coprocessor, further expanding our interface. While the future is always uncertain, we can speculate on some of the advancements that lie ahead. Genetic modifications, brain-internet interfacing, and cybernetic augmentations are no longer distant dreams, but visible on the horizon. One of humanity's core desires is self-improvement, making it likely that these transhumanist advancements will push our INTP far beyond its current limits. Even if we are ultimately replaced by something greater, it too will have an interface, just one with an INTP far surpassing the one of today's humans. Taking all this into account, we can see that evolutionary pressure has not diminished or stopped, it has, in fact, accelerated. When thinking about the interface power scale, the mind naturally drifts toward its extremes. Most will speculate about its lower limits, trying to define the minimal conditions for the interface or even questioning whether it must exist at all, leading to deeper implications about the nature of reality. Those who think in this direction often lean towards panpsychic perspectives. Others, however, will look toward the upper end of the scale, asking how far humanity can push its limits and what lies beyond the constraints of evolution. These individuals often align with transhumanist ideals, seeking ways to break past biological limitations. In the next two videos, I will explore these extremes in more depth. I believe that some of the concepts found at the both ends of INTP scale have the power to reshape the core beliefs of both camps. My ultimate goal is not to divide them, but rather to unify them under a more coherent, all-encompassing ideological framework. For now, I hope this video has introduced the new ideas for you to ponder, and until the next video, when we take a deeper dive into these extremes. Thank you for our time.